Okay, hi everybody. This is Mia from Travelpreneur Tribe, and I have Rachel here with me today. She is a copywriter, a business coach, a marketing consultant, and so much many more because she's been in the business for 6 years and has a long history behind her. So I am gonna let her talk about herself and want to welcome you first, though. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, same here. Thanks for joining. So, why don't you tell us a little about yourself? So, like, I don't sort of blab about you and, all the things that I don't even know, but
Sure. Well, I'm the typical millennial, if you hadn't guessed. The slash this slash that. So you're correct. I am all those things. I am a copywriter, business coach, marketing consultant, speaker, and teacher. So I also teach media and communications at a Melbourne-based university here in Australia. So probably like many of you, I started off, traditional office job, 9 to 5. I was always working in marketing and communications, and I've lived and worked all around the world, from England to Bangladesh. I spent a lot of time in Thailand. I even worked with organizations in Kenya, US, etc. So I've worked with clients all around the world, which has been fabulous. But yeah, 6 years ago, I decided that I wanted to try and do my own thing. I felt a bit constricted in the 9 to 5 business model. There were more people I wanted to help. There's more things I wanted to test. My jobs are amazing, but didn't really allow me to progress very quickly. And I'm one of those people that's a high achiever, always running around like a crazy person. So I decided, maybe it was time to put all of my experience and my degrees behind me. So I also have 3 degrees. I have a bachelor degree in journalism. So I'm a qualified journalist, a bachelor degree in business management, hence all of the business work that I do. And I also have a master's in international development. So that's kind of social justice issues, which has allowed me to move around the world and do all of that. So yeah, I thought, like, I've got all of these degrees, I've got all of this experience. Why don't I combine it together like a true millennial? And so I started off working mostly with large organizations such as like the World Bank, WHO, providing everything from, marketing consultancy type work to writing copy, doing training. But it's only recently, over the last couple of years, I started to narrow down and decided to help other women, such as myself, who are trying to build location independent service and product based businesses. And so now I focus on helping them be seen and heard in a way that feels right to them. So not jumping on all of the marketing fads, but, doing what works for them. So sometimes I jump on Facebook Live, other times I prefer to write. So yeah, I help them kind of build up their brand, their marketing, and they're become known for their expertise. In a way that they kind of feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I mean, I feel like really, having like a women's community, right? Of women like supporting each other, it definitely feels, much more deeply connected, right, to the women that you're connecting with. So yeah, that's great. What type of clients do you usually have now when you have kind of like switched more from like the large corporations to kind of like your small, I guess, women business owners or women freelancers that are trying to expand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I still have a few select corporate, larger clients that I work with that I feel, strongly aligned to and enjoy the work. So I still work with them, and they're mostly universities, like local governments and big bodies like, WHO and World Bank. And then my small business owners, the women I work with, it's really varied, like some of them are the copywriters such as me, some of them are business coaches. I actually got a lot of creative businesses, so photographers, designers, videographers, and also a lot of people who are in branding and marketing as well. Because as you might know yourself, when you're running your own business, it's actually hard to talk about yourself and sell yourself, even if that's your area of expertise. So yeah, although I get the creatives who, do beautiful visual and need help with words, I do get brand consultants and experts being like, help me with my brand, help me with my tone, etc. Because it's really hard to write about yourself. So yeah, I get varied businesses, which is amazing, which is why I love doing what I do.
Yeah, very nice. And I mean, I'm sure, having the flexibility of, doing it from wherever, right? I mean, it's a huge plus, whatever you choose, whether you choose to travel or whether you choose to have a home base. So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Okay, so I know one of the topics that I wanted to talk to you more about, and it's kind of like your forte, is like how to actually write a copy that people are going to read. So I know like later on you actually have a freebie for everybody that can you take in kind of to the process. So, but can you tell us a little more about it? I guess what are some of the things that you need to be careful of when you're starting, and just some tips and tricks on how to do that.
Sure. Well, I think the best place to start is to sort of recognize the 4 mistakes that we all make. And so, yes, this is focused on copywriting, but it's also pulling in branding, general sort of business marketing principles, etc. So we all do it. So the first one that I see that most commonly business owners, both large corporations and small ones, is that they don't actually know who they're talking to. And so I'll say to them, you've probably heard all these words like, your niche, your target market, your ideal customer, ideal client. And although sometimes it feels like you're hearing that all the time and it's not important, it actually really is. So when I talk to my clients, I often say, well, who are you trying to sell to? Who's your ideal client? Who would you love to work with? And a lot of them actually say to me, anyone over 18 to 55 with like a credit card. And, and I say this with love, but I'm like, yeah, that's probably not going to work for you. We're going to have to narrow that down. And we need to get so specific that we can actually imagine a person sitting across from us that we're talking to when we write our copy. So that's the first thing. And then you can do that. Obviously, you can find out through market research, Facebook analytics, Google analytics on your website, all of that kind of stuff. But you need to get super clear. And unfortunately, it needs to be more than that they have cash and that they're willing to spend it. That's obviously a prerequisite, when we're in service or product-based businesses, to exchange services, products. But it needs to be more than that. So you need to know everything from, what they're passionate about, where they spend their time, the problems that they're struggling with, what they need help with. So then you can position your product or service as a solution, as a way to address that problem. So that's the first mistake that we all make. The second one is we don't know how to get their attention. So as you probably know yourself, we're always scanning things on the internet now. We're scrolling endlessly. We're just bombarded with marketing messages, whether in our car, at work, etc. It just doesn't stop. So we need to figure out a way to get our ideal customers' attention. And so a lot of that is to do with headlines, it's to do with call to action, it's to do with the way we lay out our copy, the words that we use. But that's the main thing. So then what I also teach is, well, how can we get their attention? So we talk about like call to action formulas, headline formulas, that kind of thing, which I actually include in my freebie. So that's another one. We just don't know how to do it. The third one is that we don't know how to speak their language. So obviously all of this is still coming from the fact that you need to know who you are as a business, what you do, and your ideal client. So your ideal client, again, if you're a young, hip, makeup brand, you might be talking completely different to a traditional like brand consultant who goes out and works with people who've been in the industry for years. Different words, different style, different tone. So you need to kind of know how they're speaking so it feels like it resonates with them. I don't know if you've ever had this, but you're reading copy or an ad, or even just sort of content in general, like, wow, that's speaking to me. Like, I need to go find this person, buy this thing. That's
Definitely,
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fourth and final one, is that we just don't know how our ideal client or customer digests information. So we do big copy dumps where we just dump all of the information in, hope they find it. We might still be doing PDFs when they're actually on Facebook, not using the right images. So there is a bit of design and technology kind of that we need to think about when we're sort of communicating online and still face to face. So they're kind of the 4 mistakes we make, and they're really, really easy to fix. They just take a bit of time, a little bit of knowledge, and then they're fine. And you find that if you address all of those, if you're really clear about who you are, what you do, who your ideal client is, how you help, it just all falls into place. It doesn't mean you're suddenly become rich overnight. You've still got to work, but it just makes it a lot easier. So that's kind of, where I always suggest people to start.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great advice. And obviously, yes, like the marketing research and knowing your target customer and what you're selling, who you're selling to is really important. But let's say one of the things that I'm personally struggling with is I have that all of that information, right? And it just, there is no way that I could like put it in this like, exciting copy where, people would just want to read it. I mean, I have been in tech for like 15 years. Yes, I can tell you all the facts about it, but it's not going to be an exciting copy. So like, how do you get there, right? Like after you have all of that information that you need, any tips and tricks that you have or any tools that you use? Or, I mean, for you with journalist background, probably like you can do like a really exciting copy in your sleep, but for rest of us that are not so talented.
Thank you. I wish it was that easy. It's still just as hard for me. So also I want to like point out that we never write a perfect piece first go, that we do actually need to spend a lot of time editing and crafting, using templates, being really clear, testing things, like, working in your area of expertise, you've got to test things out. So a lot of clients, will start off, do one thing, like, oh, I didn't get the results, and just quit. So we've got to do a bunch of testing. But I guess my first, suggestion, if you're coming from a background where perhaps you haven't done much communication, much sort of writing, and you really don't feel confident, to sort of figure out what's holding you back. Is it that you're too facts heavy, so you like telling facts and figures, but you're not very good at crafting a narrative, or vice versa? And if you're really good at facts and figures, but you're not very good at narrative, if you have like a colleague or friend, what I would suggest is you actually record it on, your phone or whatever you want to do. Actually have a conversation with them. So get someone perhaps a bit more like me who's quite good with both, but, can draw the narrative out of you, and actually get them to ask you questions and record it. So, someone who's a really curious person. So you might be like, oh, did you know, 63% of women have just started a business and it's expected to increase by blah, 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 blah. And you want to talk about why your business is important and how, the industry is expanding, but you just don't know how to include yourself. Get a friend to come over and be like, well, why is that important? And you'll answer it, and she or he will keep asking you, but why, but why, but why? Until you get to your final answer. And often that answer you'll find isn't because 65% of people, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. It's actually this beautiful narrative that often has a human element in it. So if you think back to folklore, Disney movies, all that kind of stuff, the hero's journey, which you might have heard in referring to, like, say, Lord of the Rings, etc. These sort of beautiful stories and narratives that we all create and that we all, love hearing. Our brain lights up when we hear these. You can get your friends to help you craft those by asking you simple questions. Or if you hate writing, you can speak it out aloud and record that and then type it out. And then if you're really good at narrative but not very good at facts and figures, I would suggest that you write your narrative out, speak it, etc. And then actually go find ways to back up some of the points that you're saying, some of your gut feels, some of your emotions, scour the internet, get academic journals, etc. Add some stats in, some facts, because you'll actually find that most people respond to copy when there's both narrative and there's facts and stats, because we want to believe in that. And so most people, I'm generalizing here obviously, sit in those two camps more than the other. So they'll naturally tend to gravitate towards that. The people who won't stop talking at a party versus the people who are sort of at home maybe typing and looking at different research, etc. So I'll sort of do that. And don't be afraid to talk to friends, record things, write things down on Notepad. I still do that if I'm writing quite personal pieces. I don't write on the keyboard because I end up editing myself out of the piece before I've even started writing. And you obviously need something to work with.
Yeah, actually, that's one of your things, one of your first points, right? In your, I guess, like your 10 checklist or whatever. It's really, like just write whatever without editing it, And yeah, when you see it and you're like, oh, but that doesn't sound good, and then you want to go in and kind of like change it right away before maybe you even know what you really want to say. So,
Yeah, please don't do that. So you see in the free, it's like the 5 stages of writing. You've got your idea, creation, generation, research. You've actually got a whole writing phase that is completely separate to the editing phase. And then I've added my personal one, which is the marketing kind of phase of everything that you write. So writing and editing are completely different. And a lot of people who are not comfortable or a little bit scared or a bit of a perfectionist, that's me. I do that to myself, hence why I write things on pad paper. Yeah, they'll just literally edit themselves out of a piece. It doesn't matter if you're the most amazing storyteller or have the most amazing facts. If you don't have anything to work with, you're just not going to get very far. So a lot of my clients either have too many words, so they don't have enough direction in their copy, or they don't know why they're writing. Often that goes back to ideal client, the purpose. And then I have people who often have not as many words, like, maybe a sentence, and they say, help me. And I say, that's a bit hard. Often that's the editor. So they've come out and edited themselves. But also it comes also perhaps from not actually knowing what they want to write either. So they kind of struggle and just pick at things as opposed to having a more freeing writing experience.
yeah. Okay, nice. So tell me, like, what do you do, right? So, like, you went through like all of these steps, right? And now, like, you kind of like have, okay, like, I think this is like good enough, for it to go. What are some of the next steps, right, that you want to like watch out to make sure that your copy stands out and that it's really like user friendly and that basically people are gonna read it and click it visually as well, right? Not just
Yeah.
the text as well. So.
Sure. Well, I guess this is probably your editing phase. So if you've got, right amount of words, you think you've read it and you're like, I've got my purpose in here. I'm sort of feel like I'm kind of talking to my ideal client, if the word limit's roughly right, all of that kind of stuff, you can move on to editing. So what I say with editing is a general rule. You should edit probably at least 72 hours minimum after you've written the original piece, because you need to come back to it with fresh eyes. You read it out aloud and go, oh, is this good? Is this not good? Sometimes you have to then sort of keep working on your first draft and keep coming back to it. But once you've got a good first draft with editing, you can then sort of start to remove all repetition. So I probably do it now. Speaking, as human beings, we sort of talk in circles, around and around and around. We kind of do that with our writing too, which is not a bad thing. But I think we were told traditionally that if it's something's important, we have to keep repeating ourselves. That's just not the case. I don't think it ever was the case, but it's really not the case now, right? Like you cannot repeat yourself 6 times in a Facebook post. You say it once and you say it right, correctly, make it bold, snappy, grab people's attention, and then you move on to something else. So remove all repetition. You don't need to repeat things. Another good one is to remove all jargon and acronyms. So if you're one of those people that throws in industry jargon, or that's just an industry you're in, remove it. Even if you're a doctor and you're talking about a product and you know that your ideal clients are the doctors or medical professionals will understand you, remove the jargon. Spell it out, all the acronyms in full. Make it like 7th grade style copy. So even if, again, like I said, really high level professional, they'll get it. Make it so simple that you could pass it, to your niece or nephew kind of at the end of primary school, start of high school, and they'll roughly be able to get what you're talking about. That's what you should be aiming for. So remove all of that. Then I'd also recommend going through and checking for common spelling errors. So Word is amazing, but it doesn't really pick up all the things we say wrong often, like the 3 2 2 2, like W T W O, T O O T O, all of those kind of things. Word doesn't pick them up particularly well. So you can use other programs such as Hemingway app or Grammarly, which help you with both readability and repetition, and if you're using words incorrectly. but I would still recommend that you have to do it, unfortunately, with your eyeballs. So you have to often read it out aloud, and you'll pick up on those mistakes. So they get hidden a lot. It's also good to know what word you spell wrong all the time. I don't know why, but I spell receive wrong all the time.
I have a few of them as well. It's like, it's okay. I'm just never gonna learn.
Yeah, I'm just never gonna learn it. You know, I'm 32 years old, just never gonna learn how to spell it. So I have like a list at my desk, or I just know them in my head, and I literally scour the document. Sometimes even go Control F, to find, and I make sure I spelt that word correctly. Those kind of things. And I'd also get rid of really flowery language. So a lot of people will use words like really, words with the ly on the end of them. So quickly, that kind of stuff. And their words can get really, really sort of flowery and verbose and a little bit over the top. And even if you're writing, a Facebook post and it can be witty, you don't need so many of those types of words unless you think your ideal client loves them. So you might see copy now that's like, hey girl, go do this, like how you feeling, and all abbreviated. If your ideal client, that's how they talk and respond, sure, leave it in. But the majority of us kind of get a bit sick of those types of styles in language, and they're also kind of come in fads. So that's really hip right now to talk like that. Doesn't mean it will be like that in 6 months. So you can remove all of those. So just a kind of editing process where you slowly go through. You can also make sure everything you say is positive. So a lot of my clients come across quite negative. So perhaps they don't want a client to do something because they prefer a client to take another action, which is better for them. Instead of talking about the benefits or the positive kind of outcome of taking said action, they end up just telling their ideal customer off. So like, don't do this, call us here. Instead, why don't you say, use this number and you'll get through to us, immediately. Just change it, making it positive, because you don't want to feel like you're sort of wagging your finger at any of your clients. The other one is checking for abbreviations, that kind of thing as well. It's kind of all standard stuff. I mean, it's in my freebie, but you can literally Google this, these kind of guides or tips on the internet, and most of them say the same type of thing. So you don't have to hire anyone to kind of tell you these general tips, and it will make such a difference in your writing if you actually spend the time to edit. It takes me personally longer to edit pieces than it does for me to write them.
To write, yeah. Good. And then what about some of like the SEO tips, right? So like, how do you make sure that, whatever it is that you write, that it really gets the necessary visibility across?
Sure. Well, I think you should always write for your ideal client, or humans first, and then the SEO gods. So a lot of clients come to me and they've hired SEO professionals, and their copy sounds like a robot because they've just word stuffed. And obviously we know that's not correct now, but people are still doing it. So I always recommend to write for people, humans first, and then the SEO gods. So for me, when I think about SEO, I often ask my clients, often they have these words, but if not, we can brainstorm some, just words that people will search for generally around their product or service. So say if you sell little black dresses for like cocktail parties, well then you would make sure certain words and phrases within your copy are present and easy for people to scan and see them. So I don't know about you, but when I search for things on the internet, I'll do a quick scan. I'm looking for keywords. So I might be looking for like black dress, cocktail party, like affordable, free delivery, all of those types of words, great, like for a lot of people now, ethical fashion. So, ethical fashion, not made in Bangladesh, all of those kind of things. And so people are scanning quickly, and then they'll actually go back and read it if they feel that the piece has relevance or the copy has relevance to them. So my suggestion is to think about the kind of words that you'd be typing if you would be looking for your product or service, put those in. And then obviously you have data and analytics that will tell you what words are people putting in or what's resonating, etc. But if you're not sure at the start, just do it from your own kind of experience, from your own market research. You can even ask people, well, how did you find out about us? And they'll say, oh, I was searching the internet, and you came up and you're like, oh, well, what did you type in? Just start actually collecting that data, whether you have a big database and back-end system or not. The women I work with certainly don't. but we can make those changes in our copy. And I would just recommend doing things like that. And that, along with like headlines and call to actions, if you're speaking the language that your ideal client likes, all of that kind of stuff together, will get more views. People will be more like engaging with more, and then Google, Facebook, whatever algorithm, etc., will then lift you up. It will, thank you for actually producing content people want to read.
Yeah. Okay. So like, what about, what are some of the struggles that people like come to you like once when you tell them all of this, right? And you're like, oh, well, it's pretty simple. Like, go do da 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 da, right? And then they come back to you and they're like, you know what? I mean, I checked your freebie and, I know everything, but like, how do you really do that? Like, what is the most like one number pain point from the people, from your experience, that they have troubles with a copy?
Mm-hmm.
What is it mostly?
I think, to be honest, I think it's confidence. I know you might want me to say it's like an actual writing talent. I believe writing can be taught. So yes, there's some of us, perhaps I was born with some gift of writing and telling story. I love it. I read constantly. I don't necessarily believe that I'm any more gifted or talented than anyone else. It's just a craft that I work at pretty much every day and have had to perfect. But it's also a confidence thing. And I too have, writer's block and get down about my copy and think I don't know what I'm talking about. Honestly, I do. And that's why, and as soon as I start saying that to my clients, or when people attend my masterclass, it's like it gives them permission to freak out too. And I think for a lot of people, it's just a confidence thing. Because for me personally, when I was younger, I wasn't the best speller. And so I'd always get my work back with, red pen, and teachers would be yelling at me. And then in university, a teacher, I was doing creative writing, she told me to give up and that I would never have a career as a writer. Showed her up. But writing was this thing that we all felt pressure to do as a child, to perfect, reading, because it's such an important part of being a human, of being able to participate in society. So I think we all have these wounds. And when I talk about that, people actually come out and say, oh, that happened to me, or my mum used to say this to me. And I think they just need to address that fear. And once they address that fear, and then they recognize we've all got it, sometimes I do hear, the teachers in my head being, you suck, like give up when I'm having a particularly bad day. But then I think, well, no, I've published pieces. I know how to communicate, the copy that I have written resonates. And to be honest, it really is just a confidence thing. So if you're one of those people who are struggling every time you sit down to write, you kind of get the sweats, or you feel anxious, or you hate it, or you've told yourself, which I had for many years, I am not a writer because I don't do X, Y, and Z, because I haven't written a book, because I don't write a gratitude journal every day. All of those kind of things, they're sort of ideals that society's put on us, pressures, and you need to let them go. So unfortunately, it really just comes down to a confidence thing. So when I sell my masterclass, when I'm doing my work, I don't mention that, because people just want more and more tips. But in the end, it's their confidence that we have to overcome.
Okay, good. And is there any tools that you're using that kind of like help you with manage all of that? Besides, like, you mentioned like some of the things for like the grammar, but any other tools that you're using?
I'm a big fan of Word still, which I know some people find old school, but a lot of copywriters still use Word. So we turn the Word sort of readability up to max, so it like screams out at me all the time. It's like, actually, should you change this phrase to something else? And I'll be like, no, like I want to keep this phrase. But it gets me thinking about language and structure. So yeah, I do Grammarly. It's kind of my second pair of eyes. Unfortunately, I don't have a team behind me to read all of my stuff. I did use Hemingway app when I first started to help me pick up on my writing quirks. So like I said, really flowery language. If it was really compact, jargon dense, it helped me to think about readability and sentence structure. I have my own templates, and I also have my own kind of like I suppose you'll see in the freebie, if you do have a look at it, where I have, insert this word and do that word, and I have writing prompts and all of that I've created myself, that I share online with everyone, that you can access on my blog and that kind of stuff as well. So I've kind of created my own based on my own struggles and the words I spell wrong and when my confidence fails me, that kind of stuff. But it's mostly just word. I just practice all the time, writing stuff and trying new things. So my guide and all that I teach is kind of like a working template that you can use each time you write. So I have like, sort of 10 steps, and you go through all of those. And each time you write anything from Facebook post to blog post, sales copy, I recommend that you follow it to make sure you don't forget any steps, because that's what I created for myself, because I didn't have that. And so that's what I use. I use all of my own kind of stuff. Yeah, okay. So sorry I don't have any super amazing coffee for you.
The good old word.
No, sorry, it's word.
Okay, fair enough. So, just going back to like one of the questions about the struggle, but for you personally, right? Like, what are some of the things that you're personally struggling? And I know for me, it feels always like very beneficial, like hearing, other people that have been in the business for much longer than I have. Because as a new business owner, obviously you're going to be struggling. You're going to be finding things out, and every day is just like up and down, even like 3 times during the day, right? So, like, what are some of the struggles that that you're going through, and how are you basically resolving them?
Yeah, well, I mean, despite sort of working in marketing and copywriting, etc., I struggle with the same things that everyone else does. So, as an example, I've recently, like I mentioned, started working solely with, women-led businesses, female founders, etc. And when I looked at my client list, I realized that majority of my clients were kind of transitioned me from working 9 to 5 into my business. That helped me for the first couple of years, who have been amazing, and more of those corporate clients. So in the last sort of year or so, I've been looking, and I was like, oh, I actually need to go out and find these women. I don't have the luxury of just having like thousands of women around me to buy my services. So just like everyone else, I've had to be really strategic with, doing more podcasts, writing more articles, getting out and networking and meeting women, and actually just putting myself out there and saying, like, I want to connect with women who are like this, who are running businesses like this. This is what I can do or help them with. Is anyone out there? And waiting for them to come back. And yeah, I'm doing marketing and branding, and I've got all of that set up, but I'm just like everyone else, where I still have to do the work, right? Like, I still have to have a social media plan and relook over my marketing. I still had to rewrite all of my website copy and redo my branding. I had to do market research for all of my new packages. So, this is the 3rd time that I've done this for my business as it's moved. And each time you'd think it'd get easier. It hasn't. Like, it's still the process, right? I still have to do it all. I've got formulas and templates, and I get more confident, but I still have to do it. And I think, again, a lot of people are surprised when I say that, because, obviously this is my area of expertise. And I was like, no, some days I'm exhausted. And do I want to do a Facebook post? No. Do I want to do a podcast? No. I want to sit in my pajamas and eat ice cream. But I have to get up and do it like everyone else. Even the people we idolize, who we think are, really successful, they still have to get up and work every day. If not, I feel like the more successful you get, the more work you have to do, because more people realize then when you don't show up. So I stopped writing my blog for a year, took some time out, and I had people for the first few months emailing me wondering where my blog. And so I had to explain to them, but also, that pressure. I was like, oh my God, people are actually reading now. It's not just mom and dad. You know what I mean? And so I think, the more work I do, the more successful I become. I feel like, the more sort of pressure, and, you have to put more mechanisms in place to allow you to do this more sustainably. So for me, this is a lifestyle choice. It wasn't to get rich quick. It wasn't because I wanted to start a family and, have some income while I'm doing that. For me, this is a lifestyle choice. And so, to really think the last year about how I wanted to shape my business, how I wanted to, live my life, what I was willing to do and not willing to do. Hence, all the work I do now is helping women sort of be seen and heard in a way that feels right to them, because we keep sort of building businesses, in my opinion, that are very formulaic and doesn't always work for all of us. It's not giving us the freedom that we originally planned for. So they're the things I'm struggling with, exactly the same as yeah, as everyone else. And I guess
Mm.
for me, I just work through it every day. I seek advice from others. I surround myself by, with amazing people. I reach out and offer my services, my help. I, ask people if I can speak on their podcast. I'm just really kind of proactive, I guess. And then on the days that I'm not proactive, I'm taking care of myself and going for a run, eating healthy, etc. So tomorrow I can go back out and keep doing it.
All right, nice. But like you were speaking about, like the more that you work, more responsibilities. I actually just finished with Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week, and so I just read it. But the
Mhm.
next time around, I really want to like do the pointers because yes, I mean everybody talks about like the automation, right? And how do you
Yeah,
want to automate, everything that you are not the bottleneck, right? And that
yeah,
the business still happens. And yes, sometimes it's going to suffer, but one of the things for me was like, oh my God, this guy checks his emails like once a week and he's like running his business. Like, how is that even possible? Like, it would never even occur to me. Like, okay, it would occur to me, maybe like
mm,
automate your marketing, automate your social media, automate this, but like, you don't even want to read your emails. I mean, which is great, but
yeah.
like it feels like you need to put in so much work and so much like automation, but to get there. But I really feel it's possible. So I actually want to do a topic on that subject as well and really get into more details on that. But
Yeah, productivity is
speaking
important.
yeah. But speaking of books, what are some of the things, that in your journey you found very useful as resources, either for your personally, as you were just starting out a business, or, maybe some more like technical on how to's, any recommendations?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't read that many business books. I don't find them overly inspiring. I actually prefer to talk to people, or listen to podcasts, etc. And I like read a lot of memoirs because I'm in the process of writing my first book, a memoir myself. So I read a lot of memoirs and autobiographies, and I find those more inspiring. So I guess it's kind of, even though it's crafted, it's behind the scenes looks at things. So there's no sort of business books. Like I've read, the 4-Hour Work Week and stuff like that. I think actually Tim's come out and said that if he redid the book now, he wouldn't put in a lot of the things that he said, like that he said originally, because it's just actually not viable anymore. So that's what I heard from a friend. So that'll be
Yeah.
interesting as a update. So there's no specific books for me, but I actually find if we're thinking about writing, and getting a better writer, I actually think you do need to read all different types of genres. So not just, I suppose, like business books, but you should be reading memoirs, children's books, all of that kind of stuff, and actually start to analyze what you like about the writing and what books you love. Like I read a lot of YA novels, so young adult fiction. Which I never used to, but then I wanted to think about how they crafted perfect kind of narratives and really good stories with actually limited descriptions. So if you read like The Hunger Games, etc., they're only kind of focus on certain things. A lot of it you make up in your head, which can be a useful tool when selling and trying to get, behind your sort of readers, in your reader's mind. So I read a lot of books like that, which I would recommend if you're kind of interested in that, or podcasts, to, listen to them and then actually critique what you like about them, then bring them into your own business and writing. But the one book that I've used more than anything that's a technical book is what's it called? It's Words That Sell, and it's by Richard Bayan. And so I actually include some of the words that he suggested that I also use and the back of my freebie. The sort of words that create, it's like kind of magic in your writing that helps with flow and tempo, and words that the human brain just loves, like free and unique. All of those kind of words that I would definitely recommend. So I'd recommend getting this book, even if you're not a copywriter, but you're just a business owner and you're having to write copy. It gives you a really good understanding of what words, and it talks about how to put them together. It's a really, really great resource. I don't even believe it's that expensive. I think you can get on Amazon for maybe like 20 or 30 US, if not cheaper. Often they're off in secondhand bookstores as well, or at your library if your library is quite good. So you can borrow a bunch of resources there, and you can sort of write things down. if you don't want to spend heaps of money on books. But yeah, unfortunately, I might be a weird person where I just don't read a lot
Yeah.
of business books. I read everything else to help inform my writing, but not business books.
Yeah. That's fine. Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for all of the information and, sharing all of your tips and tricks. So can you just share, I mean, I know we're going to post the link to your freebie in the Facebook post, but just, where can people reach you and,
Sure. Well, everyone, if you want to sort of find me quickly, it's to go to my website. So it's just my name, rachelkurzyp.com.au, and Kurzyp is spelled Kurzyp. It's kind of weird. It's Polish, so yeah, it looks like word soup. But everything's there, so you can get my resource. You can read all of my blogs. Starting a podcast soon, so you can access all of that. That's kind of my home base. It's the best place to start.
All right. Thank you so much, Rachel. Nice having you, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.